The wind was gusting at 28 miles per hour, shifting direction every 15 seconds. The temperature differential between the firing position and the target area was creating mirage effects that made accurate ranging nearly impossible. The target was 3,000 meters away, nearly 2 meters, moving at variable speeds through terrain that offered only fleeting opportunities for engagement. Every experienced sniper in the operations center was shaking their heads. "Impossible shot," they muttered. "Can't be done under these conditions." Staff Sergeant Emery Collins studied the data on her ballistic computer, ran the calculations one more time, then looked through her scope at the distant target that everyone said couldn't be hit. She could feel the eyes on her back. The male snipers who'd spent months telling her she didn't belong, who'd questioned every qualification she'd earned, who'd made it clear they thought women didn't have what it took for precision long-range shooting. They were about to learn they were wrong. The target was a high-value enemy commander whose convoy was moving through a valley 3,000 meters from her position. If he escaped, he'd disappear into the mountains for months, and it continuing to coordinate attacks that killed American and Allied forces. This was the shot, the only shot, and it was hers to take. "Collins, stand down," came the voice of Major Dawson over the radio. "We'll wait for a better opportunity. That range, those conditions, it's not a viable shot." She didn't respond. Instead, she made minute adjustments to her scope, compensated for the Coriolis effect at this extreme range, calculated the flight time of the bullet through shifting wind conditions, and settled into her breathing pattern. One shot, one chance, 3,000 meters of impossibility between her and a target that command said couldn't be hit. What happened in the next 8 seconds would silence every doubter, rewrite the record books, and prove that skill and determination mattered more than anyone's preconceptions about gender and capability. But before we show you how she made history, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and smash that subscribe button, because this story proves that the best shot isn't always the one people expect. Now let's get into it. Staff Sergeant Emery Collins had arrived at the Special Operations Sniper course as the only female student in a class of 24. She had expected some resistance. The military was getting better about integration, but elite units still had old-school attitudes about women in combat roles. What she hadn't expected was the level of hostility she encountered from day one. "You sure you're in the right place?" Sergeant First Class Derek Hammond had asked with a smirk during in-processing. "Administrative office is 2 buildings over." The other students had laughed. Emery had smiled politely and kept filling out her paperwork, already knowing this was going to be a long journey. The Special Operations Sniper course was designed to be brutally difficult. It wasn't just about shooting accurately. Any decent marksman could hit targets at range on a controlled range. This course taught students to operate in hostile territory under combat stress and environmental conditions that degraded every aspect of precision shooting. The pass rate was less than 30%. Students dropped out or were eliminated weekly. Emery had no intention of being one of them. She'd grown up in rural Montana, learning to shoot from her father, who'd been a competitive long-range shooter. By age 12, she could reliably hit targets at 1,000 meters. By 16, she was competing in precision rifle matches and beating adults twice her age. When she joined the Army, she'd specifically requested assignments that would lead to sniper training. Now she was here at the pinnacle of military precision shooting instruction, determined to prove she belonged. The first phase of training was basic marksmanship, establishing fundamentals, zeroing rifles, shooting at various ranges under controlled conditions. Emery excelled, consistently posting the best scores in the class. That should have earned respect. Instead, it earned her suspicion and resentment. "She's getting help from the instructors," Hammond told other students during a break. "Probably getting the wind calls fed to her or something." "No way. She's that consistent naturally. Or maybe I'm just better than you," Emery replied, not looking up from cleaning her rifle. The confrontation escalated quickly. Hammond got in her face, using his size advantage to intimidate, telling her she didn't belong, that she was taking a slot from a qualified male shooter, that when real combat came, she'd freeze up and get someone killed. Emery stood her ground. "Put your scores where your mouth is, Hammond. Me and you. Stress fire exercise. Loser buys the class drinks for a month." The other students immediately started talking, hyping up the challenge Hammond had no choice but to accept without looking scared of competing against a woman. The stress fire exercise was designed to replicate combat conditions. Students ran 2 meters with full gear, performed casualty carries, Then immediately moved to shooting positions and engaged targets from 400 to 800 meters, while instructors simulated incoming fire with blank rounds and artillery simulators. Heart rate, adrenaline, and exhaustion all degraded accuracy. It was one of the course's hardest challenges. Emery and Hammond ran the course on the same day back-to-back. Hammond went first, posting a respectable score of 7 hits out of 10 possible targets. When he finished, he was confident. 7 out of 10 under stress conditions with solid performance. Then Emery ran the course. She hit all 10 targets, including an 800-meter shot while lying in a muddy ditch with instructors firing blanks 3 feet from her head. When she stood up, covered in mud, but grinning. Hammond's face went white. "That's 10 drinks you owe the class," she said. "I prefer local craft beer, by the way." The incident established her reputation. She could shoot. The question was whether she could do everything else a sniper needed. Navigate enemy territory. Operate independently for days without support. Make life or death decisions under pressure. Function as part of a team where everyone's life depended on everyone else. As training progressed through phases, stalking, observation, range estimation, moving target engagement, Emery continued to excel. But the resistance from some students, particularly Hammond and his crew, never fully went away. They found other things to criticize. She was too small to carry heavy equipment long distances. She could and did. She was too emotional to handle combat stress. She was calmer under pressure than most of her classmates. She would hesitate to take a human life when it mattered. She wouldn't, and eventually proved it. The turning point came during the field training exercise, a week-long mission where students operated in realistic combat conditions, stalking targets, conducting reconnaissance, taking simulated shots at long range while instructors played opposing force trying to find them. Emery was paired with specialist Lucas Rivera, one of the few students who treated her with professional respect from the start. They were assigned to observe an enemy compound, identify high V-value targets, and take them out if the opportunity presented itself, all while avoiding detection by a dedicated hunter force searching for them. For 3 days, they moved through hostile territory, living in hide sites barely large enough for 2 people, observing the compound through spotting scopes, logging patterns of life, identifying targets. It was exhausting, uncomfortable work that required patience and discipline. On the 4th day, they got their shot. A high-value target identified by distinctive clothing, and the difference other role players showed him emerged from the compound and moved to an exposed position 1,200 meters from their hide site. "That's our guy," Rivera whispered, checking the range with his laser rangefinder. 1,200 meters. Wind approximately 12 miles per hour left to right. Temperature 72 degrees. "You want this one?" "I'll take it," Emery replied, already settling behind her rifle. She'd been in this position before. Thousands of practice shots, hundreds of training scenarios. But this felt different because she knew instructors were watching, evaluating, judging whether she could perform when it mattered. This was the moment that would define whether she passed or failed the course. She controlled her breathing, let her heart rate settle, read the wind by watching grass movement and mirage effects, calculated all the variables that affected bullet trajectory at this range. Then she took the shot. The blank round fired with a suppressed crack. 1,200 meters away, the instructor wearing the target identifier vest immediately raised his hand and dropped to the ground. Signal that he'd been hit. Confirmed kill came the radio call from the observation team. "Target down, clean shot, center mass, outstanding work, bravo team." Rivera grinned and bumped fists with Emery. "Told you you'd nail it. That was perfect execution." But Emery's satisfaction was short-lived. As they began to exfiltrate the area, the Hunter Force instructors acting as enemy troops searching for them converged on their position faster than expected. Someone had given away their location, either through poor fieldcraft or bad luck. They had to move fast, abandoning their carefully prepared route, improvising escape through terrain they hadn't fully reconnoitered. For 6 hours, they played cat and mouse with the Hunter Force, using every evasion technique they'd been taught, making decisions on the fly, adapting to changing circumstances. At one point, they were nearly captured. The Hunter Force passed within 10 meters of where they'd gone to ground in heavy brush. Emery controlled her breathing. Her heartbeat became absolutely still in a way that seemed almost superhuman. The instructors walked right past them when they finally made it back to the rally point. 12 hours overdue, exhausted but successful, the lead instructor, Master Sergeant Vincent Kellerman, was waiting with an expression that might have been approval. That he said was textbook evasion under pressure. You maintained discipline, didn't panic, made smart decisions. That's what we're looking for in graduates of this course. He looked directly at Emery. Outstanding work, Collins. You've proven you can handle the stress. The formal evaluation was glowing. Emery and Rivera received the highest marks in the class for that exercise. But more importantly, she'd proven something to herself, that she could perform under real pressure, that her skills translated from the range to field conditions. The course culminated in a final exercise, long-range precision, shooting at distances from 1,500 to 2,200 meters, under various environmental conditions with moving and stationary targets. This was where many students failed, unable to make the leap from intermediate ranges to true long distance shooting, where every variable was magnified. Emery approached it methodically, applying everything she'd learned, trusting her training and her instincts. She shot clean on every target, including a 2,200-meter shot in 15 miles per hour winds that several other students missed completely. When the course ended, she graduated at the top of her class, the first female to ever complete the Special Operations Sniper course and the highest scoring student that year. Master Sergeant Kellerman handed her the certificate personally. "You earned this," he said simply, "not because we gave you special treatment, not because we lowered standards. You earned it by being better than everyone else. Be proud of that." But even with graduation and top honors, Emery knew the real test was still ahead. Training was one thing, combat was another. And until she proved herself in an actual operational environment, there would always be doubters who claimed she couldn't hack it in the real world. That opportunity came sooner than expected. She was assigned to a special operations unit deploying to hostile territory where enemy forces had been conducting coordinated attacks against American and Allied positions. The unit needed snipers to provide overwatch, conduct reconnaissance, and take out high-value targets when opportunities presented. Major Eric Dawson, the unit commander, was old-school military, not overtly hostile to female soldiers, but skeptical about their effectiveness in direct combat roles. When Emery reported for duty, his first words were, "You're the sniper school graduate. I was expecting someone different." "Different meaning male, sir?" Emery replied politely. "Different meaning with more operational experience. Your record says this is your first combat deployment. It concerns me when lives depend on your performance. Then give me a chance to prove my performance, sir. I didn't graduate top of my class by accident." Dawson assigned her to a team led by Captain Nathan Cross, a decorated sniper with multiple combat tours and a reputation for being both brilliant and demanding. Cross had lost teammates to poor decisions and bad shooting, and he had zero tolerance for anything less than excellence. "Collins," he said during their first briefing, his gray eyes studying her with an intensity that felt like being X-rayed. "I've read your training file. Impressive scores, but training and combat are different animals. Out here, you don't get second chances. You miss a shot that matters. Someone dies. Maybe you, maybe one of us, maybe an innocent civilian. Can you live with that pressure?" "Yes, sir, I can handle it." "We'll see. Your performance will speak louder than your confidence." He turned to the rest of the team. "This is Staff Sergeant Collins, our new precision shooter. She'll be working with Sergeant Chen as spotter. Treat her like any other team member. No special consideration, no pulling punches. She wants to be here. She can prove she belongs." Sergeant First Class, David Chen, a quiet, methodical operator with 8 years of combat experience, nodded at Emery. "Welcome to the team. I've worked with 3 other snipers. 2 were excellent. 1 got himself killed by being overconfident. Let's see which category you fall into." Her first mission was a straightforward overwatch operation. Provide security for a convoy moving through hostile territory. Eliminate any threats that emerged. She set up in a position overlooking the route, scanning for danger, ready to engage if needed. The convoy passed without incident. No shots fired, no threats engaged. Some might have been disappointed by the lack of action. Emery was professional enough to know that missions where nothing happened were still successful missions. Her second operation was more eventful. Intelligence indicated that enemy forces were planning an ambush along a specific route. Cross's team was inserted the night before to observe and, if possible, interdict the ambush before it could be executed. They set up in concealed positions with overlapping fields of fire and waited. Patience was a sniper's most important skill. The ability to remain motionless for hours, maintaining focus, ready to act instantly when the moment came. The enemy fighters arrived at dawn, moving into positions along the route, preparing their ambush. Through her scope, Emery counted 8 fighters, all armed with automatic weapons and RPGs. They were confident, relaxed, expecting easy targets. "Stand by," Cross's voice came through her earpiece. "We'll let them get set, then take them all at once. On my mark, engage your assigned targets. Collins, you've got the 2 on the left flank." Emery settled her crosshairs on the first target, a fighter crouched behind a rock pile 600 meters away. She accounted for wind, elevation, temperature. Her finger took up slack on the trigger. 3, 2, 1, execute. She fired twice in rapid succession, the suppressed rifle making a sound like a hand clap. Both targets dropped around her. She heard the muffled cracks of other team members engaging their targets. In less than 10 seconds, all 8 enemy fighters were down, all targets neutralized. Cross reported, "Outstanding shooting, Team Collins. Both your targets were clean kills. Well done." It was the first time she'd killed another human being. She waited for the emotional reaction, guilt, horror, trauma that combat was supposed to cause. It didn't come. These fighters had been preparing to ambush and kill Americans. Stopping them was the job, and she'd done it efficiently and professionally. Over the next months, Emery participated in dozens of operations, Overwatch missions, direct action raids, reconnaissance patrols. She proved herself repeatedly, making difficult shots under combat stress, operating professionally in chaotic environments, earning the respect of her teammates through consistent performance. Chen, her spotter, became one of her strongest advocates. "She's the real deal," he told Cross after a particularly challenging mission where Emery had eliminated 3 targets at varying ranges under difficult conditions. "Best shooter I've worked with, and I've worked with some legends. But the shot that would make her famous, the shot that would silence all remaining doubters, came during what should have been a routine reconnaissance mission. Intelligence had identified a high-5 value target, an enemy commander responsible for coordinating attacks across the entire region. He was scheduled to meet with subordinate leaders at a compound in a remote valley. Cross's team was tasked with observing the meeting, confirming the target's identity, and if possible, eliminating him. They infiltrated to an observation position on a Rajialine overlooking the valley. The compound was 3,000 meters away, nearly 2 miles. At that distance, positive identification would be difficult. Actually engaging a target would be nearly impossible. "We're here to observe and confirm," Cross briefed the team. "If we get a clean shot at reasonable range, we'll take it. But our primary mission is intelligence gathering. Don't take shots you can't make." They set up their Hindite and began the patient work of observation. Hours passed. Through high-powered optics, they watched vehicles arrive at the compound, watched fighters take up security positions, watched the meeting participants arrive. Then, through her spotting scope, Emery saw him, the target identified by photos from intelligence briefings. He emerged from a vehicle surrounded by security, moved toward the compound entrance, paused to speak with someone. "I've got positive ID," she reported. "Target confirmed at the compound entrance." "Range?" Cross asked. 3,000 meters, she replied, checking her laser rangefinder multiple times to confirm. "That's too far," Cross said immediately. "Way too far under these conditions. Wind is unstable. Mirage effects are severe. We'd be shooting across a temperature gradient, not a viable shot." Major Dawson's voice came over the radio. He was monitoring from the operations center. "Agreed. We'll track him, develop a better opportunity later. Hold position and continue observation." But Emery was studying the situation through her scope. The target was moving toward the compound entrance. In 30 seconds, he'd be inside and they'd lose him. Intelligence said he rarely left this compound once inside, could stay there for weeks. This might be the only opportunity they'd have. She ran calculations in her head. 3,000 meters, wind averaging 28 miles per hour but gusting and variable. Temperature 75 degrees at their position, estimated 95 degrees in the valley. Significant thermal gradient that would affect bullet trajectory, target moving at variable speeds. Mirage effects making ranging difficult. Every experienced sniper would say this shot couldn't be made. The longest confirmed kill in military history was 2,815 meters. This would be nearly 200 meters beyond that, under conditions that were far from ideal. But Emery had something other snipers didn't. She'd been shooting at extreme distances since she was a teenager, had spent thousands of hours learning to read wind and mirage, had an intuitive understanding of ballistics that went beyond textbook calculations, and she'd spent the last months proving herself in combat. This was her moment. "I can make this shot," she said quietly. "Negative, Collins," Cross replied firmly. "That's beyond any reasonable engagement range. We don't take shots we can't make. I can make it, she repeated more firmly. I've got the data. I've got the calculations, and I've got a 10-second window before he goes inside, and we lose him for weeks. Request permission to engage. There was a pause. Cross was torn between doctrine and opportunity, between following standard procedures and trusting a shooter who'd proven herself repeatedly. Chen, her spotter, had been running his own calculations. Sir, he said quietly, the data actually supports the shot. It's extreme range, but wind is consistent for the moment. Temperature gradient is calculable, and Collins has demonstrated precision at extended ranges. It's not impossible, just extremely difficult. Collins, this is Dawson. The Major's voice came over the radio. That's an impossible shot under these conditions. Stand down, we'll develop another opportunity. Emery didn't respond. She was already settling into her final shooting position, making micro-adjustments to her scope based on everything she could observe. Grass movement in the valley indicating wind shifts. Mirage patterns telling her about temperature gradients. The target's movement cadence suggesting where he'd be in 8 seconds when the bullet arrived. She'd calculated that the bullet would take approximately 4 seconds to travel 3,000 meters. In that time, it would be affected by wind, gravity, Coriolis effect, air density changes, and a dozen other factors. Any miscalculation of even a few inches would result in a complete miss at this range. But Emery wasn't guessing. She was applying years of experience, thousands of hours of practice, and a level of intuitive understanding that couldn't be taught in any course. She controlled her breathing, let her heart rate drop to 55 beats per minute, found her natural respiratory pause. The target was 20 feet from the compound entrance, walking at a steady pace. In 8 seconds, he'd be at the doorway. In 10 seconds, he'd be inside. Her finger began its slow, steady press on the trigger. Collins, I said, stand down. Dawson's voice in her ear. She tuned it out. There was only the target, the crosshairs, the wind, the calculations. Everything else faded away. The rifle fired with a muffled crack. The 338 Lola Magnum round left the barrel at 2,950 feet pers, beginning its 8-second journey across 3,000 meters of air. Through her scope, Emery watched the bullet's trace, barely visible vapor trail arcing across the valley. She'd accounted for a 328 in drop at this range for wind drift that would push the bullet 64, in left for Coriolis effect that would deflect it another 3 in. The calculations had to be perfect. At 3,000 meters, being off by just 1 degree would result in a miss by over 50 meters. The target was at the doorway, his hand reaching for the handle. Security forces around him relaxed, thinking they were safe because no sniper could possibly reach them from the distant ridge lines. 8 seconds after Emery's shot, traveling at over 1,800 foot pers, the bullet arrived. The target dropped like his strings had been cut, collapsing in the doorway. His security forces immediately scattered, searching for the threat, trying to understand where the shot had come from. But from 3,000 meters away, the suppressed rifle report was inaudible, the muzzle flash invisible. Holy shit, Cross breathed, his eyes still pressed to his spotting scope. Target down. She actually hit him at 3,000 meters. That's impossible. Confirmed kill, came the report from the drone overhead, which had been filming the compound. Target is down. Catastrophic hit. No signs of life. Chen, who'd been running verification calculations, spoke with quiet awe. Range confirmed at 317 meters. Wind at engagement was 26 to 30 mile per hour. Variable temperature differential approximately 20 degree. That shot. He shook his head. That shot should not have been possible. The radio erupted with chatter. Operations Center trying to confirm what had just happened. Other team members expressing disbelief. Dawson demanding verification of the range and conditions. Emery calmly ejected the spent brass, chambered a fresh round in case a follow-up shot was needed, then spoke into a radio. Target eliminated, range 3,000 meters, requesting confirmation from overhead assets and permission to exfiltrate. There was a long silence, then Dawson's voice, carrying a note of something that might have been awe. Shot confirmed by overhead assets. 317 meters actual measured distance, wind conditions as reported. That's a world record, Collins. You just made the longest confirmed sniper kill in military history under combat conditions against a moving target. Back at base 6 hours later, Emery was swarmed by personnel wanting to know how she'd made the shot, what calculations she'd used, what techniques had allowed her to accomplish something that experienced snipers considered impossible. She tried to explain the ballistic coefficients, the weather data, the mathematical models. But the truth was that at a certain level, precision shooting became more art than science. It was intuition developed over thousands of hours, an ability to read conditions that couldn't be fully quantified, a confidence in your own capabilities that let you take shots others wouldn't attempt. Cross pulled her aside privately. "That shot you made today," he said quietly. "I've been doing this for 15 years. I've worked with the best shooters in the military. What you did out there." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I was wrong to doubt you. That wasn't just skill. That was instinct at a level I've never seen. You trusted yourself when everyone, including me, was telling you it couldn't be done. That takes courage as much as capability." "Thank you, sir. That means a lot coming from you. You realize what you've done, right?" Master Sergeant Kellerman, her former instructor, told her over a congratulatory secure call. "You've not only set a record, you've proven something that a lot of people didn't believe was possible. Female snipers can perform at the absolute highest level of this profession. You've opened doors that were closed before." The military officially recognized the shot. At 317 meters, it was the longest confirmed kill in combat history, surpassing the previous record by over 200 meters. The data was classified. The details of the mission were secret, but within the special operations community, everyone knew what Emery Collins had accomplished. Hammond, her former antagonist from sniper school, sent her a brief message. "I was wrong about you. That shot was legendary. Respect." Chen, her spotter, put it more simply during their next mission brief. "I've spotted for a lot of shooters. You're the best I've ever worked with, period." But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from her father, the man who taught her to shoot as a child, watching through his scope as she made impossible shots at Montana shooting competitions. "I always knew you'd do something special," he told her during a phone call. "But this, setting a world record under combat conditions, I couldn't be more proud. You've proven what I've always known, that skill and determination matter more than what anyone thinks about who should or shouldn't be able to make that shot." Emery continued to serve with Cross's team, participating in dozens more operations. She never made another 3,000-meter shot. The circumstances that had aligned for that perfect storm of distance, conditions, and opportunity were unlikely to ever repeat, but she didn't need to. She'd proven what she'd set out to prove. The missions continued, each one adding to her operational experience. She worked with Chen on counter-sniper operations, eliminating enemy shooters who'd been terrorizing Allied forces. She provided overwatch for high-risk raids, her rifle, keeping teammates safe as they operated in dangerous environments. She trained local forces in marksmanship, passing on techniques and knowledge that would help them defend themselves. In one particularly memorable mission, the team was tasked with protecting a convoy moving through an area known for ambushes. Emery identified an enemy observation post 1,500 meters away, well beyond the range most shooters would consider engaging from, and eliminated the spotter before he could call in the ambush. The convoy passed safely, none of its occupants ever knowing how close they'd come to disaster. "That's what separates good snipers from great ones," Cross told the team during the debrief. Collins saw the threat before it became active, made a shot that prevented the problem rather than reacting to it. That's tactical thinking combined with precision shooting. A year after her record-setting shot, she was selected as a senior instructor at the Special Operations Sniper course. The same course that had initially doubted her now wanted her teaching the next generation of precision shooters. Her first class included 3 female students who looked at her with a mixture of hope and determination. "Good morning." She began her first day of instruction. "I'm Master Sergeant Emery Collins, and I'm going to teach you how to make shots that other people say are impossible. Not because I'm special or superhuman, but because I learned to trust my training, believe in my capabilities, and never accept anyone else's limitations on what I could accomplish." She clicked to her first slide showing the ballistic data from that 317-meter shot. "Let me tell you about the longest confirmed kill in military history and what it taught me about precision shooting, mental discipline, and proving that the best shot isn't always the one people expect." As she taught, Emery realized this was exactly where she needed to be, not chasing records or proving points, but passing on knowledge that would keep future operators alive, teaching the next generation that skill had no gender, that capability mattered more than preconceptions, that impossible shots were only impossible until someone made them. During breaks, students would approach her with questions, not just about shooting mechanics, but about dealing with doubt, handling pressure, maintaining confidence when everyone around you says you can't do something. How did you know you could make that shot?